Rich, this is a really heavy and difficult topic in general, which has a lot of perceived negative outcomes, right? Like there's that fear. But at the same time, there can be positive outcomes from this. And so just in your experience, I know, your story, but also as leading groups, like what are the positive outcomes of mandatory reporting situations?
Yeah, I think there's just a load of positive outcomes. It may now for the individual, I want to make sure you hear this right, is like, it's scary.
Sure.
In society, when you look at it that way, there's all these negative outcomes. But as an individual, I think it's important that we remember is like, I just, for the first time in my life, shared what I did. That's a positive. You basically you're breaking that piece of isolation.
Fall off. Yep.
And for some guys, that's prison. Some guys is probation. Whatever they decide the consequences are. I have had a lot of conversations where guys have gone away and are in prison for probably the rest of their lives, where my thing to them is that don't look at this as the end all be all. I said, just because you're locked up for 10, 20, 30, whatever years doesn't mean you can't find freedom from unwanted sexual behavior.
Or help other people.
Help. What an opportunity to go get some help and then work with other guys in the prison. Or you're on probation, you get connected with a church, and then now your story, because you made the choice to come forward, now you're helping other guys in the same situation. So I think there's more positives to that than there are negatives. Now, the other side of that, the crappy part is there's a child that was hurt, or there was a woman that was hurt, or a family that's hurt. So there's those natural consequences that are not good. And we offer a lot of support for them, so there's those pieces. And that's the hard part. It's like, I'm helping a guy for the first time and he's finally able to share and he's accepting his consequences, which is great because he's owning it. But at the same time, we have a destroyed family on the other side. So it's like, how do we help both sides? Because I don't want to come across as like, oh, hey, hurrah for the guy.
Right.
But we need to make sure we help the family side too.
Yeah, when I think of the positive outcomes that can happen here, I think it's dealing with the situation at the lowest possible level. Yeah. Like if it hasn't been dealt with up until now is the best time to deal with it, because in all likelihood, it will only get worse. Yep. I've talked about that anything that's buried, unless it's a seed, everything else that's buried rots and gets worse, not better. And your secret or the stuff in your past is not a seed that's going to grow into new life. Maybe one day if it's redeemed, but if it's a secret, it's going to rot and just cause more death. And so in dealing with mandatory reporting issues, we may actually be giving someone the grace of let's help you now before it goes to another level. Because even when we're saying, well, I would never do that, well, in all likelihood, the thing we've already done, at one time we said I would never do that. Mm-hmm. And if we don't deal with it, the likelihood that it will become something else is very strong, because as we've all seen in our stories and in everyone's story, this is a progressive behavior. This doesn't just leave us alone and say, oh, you're good there forever. You never have to go beyond it. Unless we're really getting help and making changes, it will continue to take us further and deeper and to worse places. So I think as a group leader, if we can see that, like, wow, I may actually be sparing someone from something worse down the road by dealing, and sparing other people by dealing with it now. So just keeping that perspective is believing God can redeem really, really tough stories. And I'd rather have that redemption start now and not prolong it another 5 or 10 years or whatever. And yes, God could still redeem it then, but it'll probably be an even more difficult process. So let's try to bring that redemption in now and give God the opportunity to start doing his work in an area that really has probably been a playground for Satan to create shame and fear and pain and all the stuff that comes with that. So let's let the light in. And light is hard at first because it can be very jarring and make us squint. But if we get used to the light and it expels the darkness, that's going to be good in the long run for everyone.